Call this meeting to order. Tonight, we're going to be led in the pledge by Mr. David.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Snipper. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting tonight. Probably one of the most painful meetings we have to endure as board members. I guess I think Mr. Evans gave us a report last week. He had 748 exemptions, I believe, or zone exemptions. And through the process, we've got basically 3 appeals tonight that we'll be hearing. And I would tell each one appealing that this is probably one of the most difficult decisions we have to make, other than dealing with zoning issues also, zone lines. So each one up here, I think most of them have sat in these appeals process before, so I'll assure you everyone takes it serious. Before I turn it over to Mr. Evans, I'm going to let Mr. Odom, he may want to say a few words.
I have several questions about courses and often, so I've placed on where you're sitting a CTE course of study. Of course, that's just one area, that's not the academic area, but that's CTE. Some questions, where do we have very many courses throughout the system where there's only one of? If you look at the far right, I have on that the cluster, the CTE cluster, the program of studies, what you're looking at. And anywhere that you see a 1 on the far right would be there's only one program of study. And it varies from school to school based upon demand, of course, financial, that sort of thing. It costs, some courses cost more than others for us to set up. So you've got at least 124, if you see the number of courses of study. They're kind of scattered throughout the system. But tonight, if you have any questions or things like that, it's your hearing, but I'll be glad to try to answer them as best I can for any of these hearings.
Anybody have any general questions right now in regards to any of this? All right, Mr. Evans, I believe I'll turn it over to you, and I believe you're going to have Mr. Reed swear him in.
Yes, anyone who plans to speak tonight, please stand, please. Raise your right hand.
Anyone who's speaking with the board tonight, please raise your right hands if you could. And say, do you swear and affirm that the evidence you're going to give to the board tonight is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, and the way we'll do this is, in the order tonight, I'll call the family member. You're welcome to come up to the podium and state your case. Mr. Odom may have a response to some of your information, and the board may ask questions and we'll take a vote. So the first family we've had tonight, parents Bradley and Kimberly Ford requested zone exemption for their child to attend Stewart Street High School instead of the Gardens.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brad Ford. I live at 414 Old Nashville Highway, Laverne. My wife Kim, my 2 children are here with me tonight. Colt's a 7th grader, and Kendall, my daughter's the 8th grader, we're seeking an exemption for. I'd like to state a few reasons for requesting this exemption. Kendall's an honor student who excels at arts, medals in music, playing the flute, especially enjoys culinary arts. She has an opportunity at Stewart's Creek to continue honors programs such as math, English, and history that she would only be in standard courses with at Laverne. She has an interest in photography, another course they offer there, also food photography. But most importantly, Kendall wants to pursue a career in culinary arts and join the family business. I've been a business owner in Rutherford County for 19 years. I love it here. My 2 kids are completely different. Colt is on an academic track. He's really wants to go to Laverne High School because of their superior college credit program. And he's a 2-year. He's won the Spectrum Award at Rock Springs Middle, and he's also taken the ACT for Duke University and did very well. So it's not that we just want to go to the new, shiniest new school. Colt seriously wants to go to Laverne. It's just Kendall is a much better fit for Stewart's Creek. All kids are different, and I feel like Kendall is a better fit for that, and she thinks the same. So it's not just like as I said, it's not that we aren't proud of Laverne, because they have some very exceptional things going for them too. When Kendall first asked us to look at the zone exemption, we went to the Rutherford County School Board's website to get the application. So we read the exemptions would be decided on a case-by-case basis, but noticed in bold print, zone applications will not be permitted for Laverne High School and Smyrna High School to preserve the zones approved by the Rutherford County Board on December 4th, 2012. Also, to reiterate with an asterisk, it said, no exemptions permitted from Laverne and Smyrna High Schools. This concerned me a little bit because it seemed discriminatory to me. Just those two cities, those schools. And as you said, 748 applications were submitted. The majority were approved. Only 91 were denied. Out of that, only 10, 3 from Laverne and the rest from Smyrna. It was just interesting to me that the principals both denied the per board directive. To my knowledge, this was never voted on as a policy. It was just a circumstance or a stipulation. I realized there was rampant athletic misuse of the zoning exemptions, and that's probably the reason why it was created, but it's not the case with Kendall. She's clearly not being recruited. I also found Mr. Hodge. I had a chance to watch the YouTube video for the June 5th board meeting. I found your comments a little interesting that Stewart's Creek circumstance, should it be reversed, the board and I will have a problem, you said. I'm paraphrasing. You referred to the past zoning appeals as 2 nights of misery. You said the board came up with something that was easy for the staff to deal with and easy for the board to deal with. Well, to me, that's not a real good reason for deciding what's best for the kids. I'd like you at least to look at this as on a case-by-case basis rather than just completely deny it because she's from Laverne. And I hope if there are open seats, we'll have some recourse where we can try again this year. Also came to my attention this was going to expire next year is what I kind of understood from the meeting. If you could state for the record what your intentions are with those 2 things, I would appreciate it. And I appreciate your service to the community. I know you get little if no pay, and it's a tough night for you. Like you said, it's not a fun thing doing what you're doing right now, but I do appreciate your service. Thank you.
Mr. Odom, you found out some information about the program, culinary program at Stewart's Creek?
I did go in and look at the computer, the request for courses, which you can print and look at it. There's, right now, as of yesterday, they had 204 students requesting culinary arts. We did place a second teacher there, and remember CTE courses are 1-to-20 ratio. There's a 7-period day. Teachers get 1 period of planning. Every teacher has to have a period of planning. So you effectively have 6 periods for a teacher. The issue is the Culinary Arts 3 is a 2-hour block. So teachers can basically hold 5 20-student groups, each teacher, if you divide between the 2. So right now, that would serve 200 students. So they're running a little bit higher than that at 204 right now. But again, will some change their mind or others want to change into culinary arts? I don't know. But the number yesterday was 204.
Well, that's not taking into consideration the first year registration and the new
That
students
people
that's
moving
going to come in.
Right. That was just simply the request that came from the spring request of people who are zone or attending school there.
Traditionally, seniors would get preference, and then
You
juniors.
you go
and sophomores.
senior, junior, sophomore priority, basically. There's basically culinary arts 1, 2, and 3, so you usually in that particular order, which you consider. Mentioned earlier about why we basically said not from Smyrna to Learn. It was some of the same things we ran into when, if you remember, we opened Siegel High and Oakland High. We had kind of a really open zone. You've grandfathered for 2 years. That will expire after this next school year. That allows, which one of your issues is not only the new school, but the issue is to be able to maintain programs and all at your existing schools so that you can have the staff and the quality for those number of programs. So that's why we made that issue. I don't see any reason for keeping it beyond those 2 years that you have the grandfathering option available. But again, how many slots, I mean, if you get there, coming in as a freshman, probably not going to be anyway. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's probably not, because again, typically, it would be, and they may have had a few freshmen this year, but it was because of the number they had in startup. But next year, again, there's 204 names that I saw. You mentioned something about honors. I did look at, I talked to Mr. Harold today, or Dr. Harold today, kind of about that. Blackman, if you remember, it's been several years ago now, high schools at work recommended that Blackman offer only honors and above honors level courses. You remember that? So they did away with all of anything that was not called honors. They just basically renamed it. I asked Dr. Harrell, I said, he came from Blackman, did you bring it? He said, yeah, we did this year, kind of. So basically they've named their courses that. But he said they've revisited it. He told me today they revisited, especially starting with some of the English courses and the things next year. They're not going to be calling them necessarily honors. But that was more of a technical naming that came with high schools at work from Blackman. So that's some of the reasoning behind that. But your biggest issue is, if culinary arts is your big issue, it would be the slots available. But that's what you're going to run into.
Mr. Odom, you've said in the past that we would make those courses available to those students. They just have to stay in zone.
Since, and I've been attending board meetings a long time, and so when we get down to a zoning exemption request, I don't think we have approved any in many, many years that would relate it to a course of study. I want to go here and take that course. Because the uniqueness of the courses you can see from this CTE sheet, I mean, there's courses everywhere that you could, you have so many people that could pick a course. And this is just a CTE list. This is not the list of academics. It could be an AP or something like that course that you could name. So it really doesn't come down to the in these cases, even the 3 we got tonight, are really more is based on a course request. We just haven't done that in years. It hasn't been something we've done, and that hasn't been something the board has directed us to do. So inconsistency, as Mr. Evans and I looked at these, we basically did not consider approval based upon a course request, because to my knowledge we haven't done it since maybe the 70s. It's been a long, long time ago when Oakland Riverdale opened. That was done.
If I may, even if, as you said, freshmen are pretty much going to be excluded from it next year because it's so full, and juniors and seniors probably get top picks. But her just being there for 1 year, having her foot in the door, would help her get into it later on, rather than coming over as a sophomore and having to redo and make new friends and, move the whole thing over from Laverne to Stewart's Creek after this clause sunsets or whatever the case is. So I hope you'll take that into consideration too.
Well, I would like to go on record, since you've asked for that, you know, I still want to remain true to the zones. My voting record on these have always been that it needs to rise to a level of extreme necessity before we exempt someone from their zone to another zone. So as far as saying it's open, traditionally, when children have moved from one school to another, it's because that school, the school they're in, is over capacity, and the school they're wanting to go to is not over capacity. Well, in this case, the school that you're zoned for is not over capacity. It's not even at capacity. So,
I feel like it will be over capacity soon. If you look at the apartments next to Lowe's, look at the apartments behind Target, they're going to get flooded. You know,
using
not
that,
this year,
yeah.
but next year.
Well, that scenario with the number of children, students coming in the freshman class at Stewart's Creek just this year, Stewart's Creek's going to be full probably in 2 years also.
I think Rutherford County's booming.
500 and,
There'll be 1,650 next year.
how many of the freshman classes, oh, like
There are over
500?
500
Below
construction,
500.
and so that'll put us over 1,000 in another year.
Yeah, so.
I think we'll be 1,650 next year, we'll be 1,950 to 2,000 the year after that.
So we'll have the same issue. We'll be crowded. We'll be crowded at every campus again, just like we have been in the past.
Mr. Nooker?
Mr. Odom, did you look at Smyrna and see if they were at capacity in the culinary?
No, neither one of those two are really at capacity now. Neither
No.
Would that be, I mean,
We
if you want culinary arts, could you go to Smyrna?
We did open those up. We didn't restrict anything really from Smyrna to Laverne or Laverne to Smyrna. That we opened those two campuses because they lost that large number to the grandfather. So we opened that campus this year. They were closed, but we opened it this year. So Smyrna is an option. But I have not done their culinary arts count. I don't know.
Right.
And I
But-
think they only have one culinary arts
They
teacher,
have a
I
single
believe.
culinary
And-
arts teacher there, as far as if I recall correctly, I gave the second one just recently.
And you know, being from that area, I mean, if you go down the interstate or whatever, turning towards Stewart's Creek or turning towards Smyrna, it's about the same off the interstate. I'm just suggesting that that could be an option.
I appreciate that.
John?
I'd like to know, as far as other field processes, how many has been similar to this and we've already denied it from internal? Do you know?
During the appeal process, there have been a total of 10 requests this year for Stewart's Creek High that have been denied. For either Laverne or Smyrna, there are for similar reasons. Typically, it's a course request for their child is at Stewart's Creek Middle School, they want to stay in that Stewart's Creek Middle campus speaker system. Those kinds of requests.
You had 63 students, if you remember that housing area that when we were doing the rezoning for Stewart's Creek High School there, I believe there were 63 students in one of those housing areas that actually attend Stewart's Creek Middle that are zoned to Smyrna High School. So a number of those people did contact us, but it's just one of those things. Typically, it takes 2 middle schools serve 1 high school is typically the way it goes. So there's a number of those that was in that initial request that were denied.
And I know we've mentioned tonight about hopefully opening up Stewart's Creek next year, but it will depend, and I think you've made that point, depend on the enrollment next year. If they're 1950, then they'll be very close to being at capacity, so it will somewhat depend on what the enrollment is next year for 15, 16 students.
Mr. Ford, I can tell you, and I think I can speak for the board in this case, and I apologize, I probably talked too much tonight, but we would love for every child to get to go where they want to go. And it hurts our hearts, you know, to say no. But realistically, the zone lines need to stay as true as they possibly can, except in extreme circumstances. And, would love to say yes, but I'm not going to be able to, and I'm sorry. If anybody else has anything else to say, I'll wait, but if they don't, I'll make a motion.
I agree with what you're saying. We've got to be consistent with how we handle these issues, and we can't go back and grant someone this option, and we turn 10 other people down. I mean, it's just,
Anyone else?
Okay. I move to deny.
a second.
Got a motion by Mr. Blair and a second by Mr. Young. Any further discussion? Call roll, Ms. Michaels.
Mr. Eads,
No, or deny.
Mr. Holliday,
Deny.
Mr. Jernigan,
No.
Mr. Nipper,
No.
Mr. Young,
No.
Mr. Blair,
Deny.
Mr. Hodge,
Deny.
motion carries to deny.
All right, next, Mr. Evans, you got the Harvey family?
Yes. Okay. The parents, our parents, Ron and Regina Harvey, requested zoning extension for their child to attend Stewart Street High instead of the Martin High School.
Good evening. I am Regina Harvey. I find myself before you again this year. So I confess I am a bit at a loss for words, but I'll do my very best. I have with me this year my husband Ron, our daughter Ryan, who, praise the Lord, just graduated from Laverne this past year and is going on to MTSU. She's addressed you before as well on the merits of the dual enrollment program at Laverne. And then there is the man of the hour, our youngest son, Reed Harvey. And so I thank you for the opportunity to come and to talk with you. I really don't have prepared notes this evening, so I'm just going to try to share from my heart because I am concerned as a parent about one child. I know that your job is to deal with the needs of the school board, and I appreciate your service. Your job is to deal with the needs of an entire school system. But your job is also, I know that you take it very seriously, to deal with the needs of each individual child. I've heard last year the concerns that you had, and our great expectation based on the meeting last year was that those restrictions that kept students from leaving one school and going to another, that those would be over, and that our request was just at the wrong time. But that it was a request that had merit, but at the wrong time. And so here we are back again this evening to talk again about a request to allow Reed to attend courses, attend school actually, at Stewart's Creek. He is interested in a program of study that surrounds journalism. He has an older brother who graduated last year from Tennessee Tech with that same degree. Watched his brother lead the sports section, be the sports editor of the school newspaper, watched him, work in a field that he loves. And so Reed is interested in studying in that area. Those opportunities do not exist at Laverne. I can hear all of the list, and I understand. You might imagine from even looking at my skin color, I very much care about fairness. I very much care about equality and that we treat folks equally. I get that and I understand where you're coming from. But I will go back to the needs of one child who happens to belong to me. So he went, we sat here last week, we were brokenhearted, we left. We went back to Laverne, supported the school, supported the administration, whether we thought that was a good thing or a bad thing. We did it faithfully, supported an excellent staff of teachers in the classroom. Reed continued to get straight A's and has done all that's been asked of him. So he comes before you again, asking for permission to attend Stewart's Creek, to take the courses that he's interested in taking. And so we ask that you honor not only our request, but that you honor his good faith effort to go to Laverne and to do well and to do as you've asked. And so I ask that you honor that by granting the request that we have made and allowing him to make that move. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, board members?
Will you just as eloquent this year as you were last year?
You're most kind.
Your daughter was valedictorian also, wasn't she?
Not valedictorian. Honors and distinction. She had lots of chords that could get her tripped up as she went through graduation. So thank you for acknowledging her success. We're very proud.
If the course is available, as far as being able to travel from Laverne High School to Stewart's Creek and back, either maybe first period, last period, is that viable for you?
That is the goal that
'Cause
we
we're looking
have
at
in
one
mind.
course, right?
So one course of study, absolutely. It would, and I'm going to be fairly demanding about it, but it would meet the need that he has. We are two parents looking for the best for our child, so that would meet that need. It would allow him to also allow us to make him work really hard and take advantage of dual enrollment. So that could be, in our mind, the best of both worlds. I'd need your support to make sure that that happens. I don't always, sometimes I have great success working with teachers always at Laverne. So if we had your support to make sure that that happened, that would be wonderful.
I know I talked to Mr. Ash, and he was very supportive of making those classes off campus available. Is that something you think would work, Mr. Owen?
We've done that in the past. We've done it usually first period or last period. We schedule one of those. So it'd be broadcasting one. Is that what we were talking about?
Because Reed will be a junior, yes.
We just have to talk to Dr. Harrell and see that you have one at that time. We got one person that does audio and another that basically does the broadcasting. So I would think there would be a period, do that. I just have to check specifically.
Look to see that happen.
Mr. Jernigan?
I was just wondering about, I hate to hang a carrot out there and then there not be room for that students in that class.
I don't think that one's over yet. I mean, I didn't specifically check that one, but I don't think that one is over yet, the broadcasting. We just have to check and see for sure.
And I would also, I know it's not my turn to talk, but I'll jump in for a second. I think another thing that's important, and I know that it's challenging, but just to give you an example of how scheduling can be difficult. So with your support, I think schedules can be worked out. But for example, a very simple conflict that happened last year, Ryan was the student leader of the choir, of the choraleers, had been in choir all of her years of school, is going to college for psychology and was unable to take the psychology dual enrollment track because of scheduling. So I know that everyone will do their best, but I feel if this is the course that we'll take, we will need your support. And I appeal to you to be there for us so that if there are scheduling snafus that we do run into, that you allow us to come back and you reconsider our zone exemption request.
Now, was the conflict because of the choraleers?
Choraleers got switched. So when she registered, they had certain blocks for dual enrollment courses, and then Corollaries was always third period. It got switched to first. So it was just one of those things. I don't know, I'm sure there was a good reason. I know it was not, just an intentional or a haphazard thing, but sometimes kids do fall through the cracks. And we all know that sometimes the higher achieving students don't always get as much attention because they're getting straight A's. They are staying out of trouble. They're not in, I have to go introduce myself to Mr. Ash every time. He does not know me as a parent that he has to call. And, we're on our third child through Laverne. So I know sometimes they get kind of lost in the shuffle. So I don't think it was intentional, but it did have an unintended consequence that wasn't as helpful for Ryan. Now, I guarantee she'll be at middle, she'll do well. She has scholarships, and so she's gonna do well, but it would have been a little extra.
But the difference may be that Reed possibly would not have what would be considered I guess almost extracurricular activity to conflict with that. So I would think that would make it a little simpler.
Okay.
And I know I think I can tell from this board that we're motivated that he would have access to that class.
I'm very encouraged by those words.
Anybody else?
In order to make this happen, do we need to add that in some way, Mr. Odom, to make the wishes of the board known? That,
I mean, if you'd like to, we'll do that. Try to see if we
the
can.
only other thing would be, I don't know if it's too late to do that, is to withdraw the appeal, and you're going to have access to that anyway. I'm just wondering.
That, will we have another appeals hearing probably later on,
Only
if somebody else comes?
Only if someone else requested. We've been pretty strict with the deadline this year. Last year was the first year we had a deadline, so that was kind of everyone was getting used to it. But this year, we've had very few that would still be eligible for appeal at this point because they've passed their 10-day period for asking for an appeal. So there's always a chance of maybe one trickle in, but I don't.
The reason I was saying that, if you didn't take action and we couldn't get into broadcasting, then we would not have already voted on it. I mean, to see how that works out, exactly what period it's offered and that sort of thing.
Mr. Ware, if I understand your intent, you're suggesting not to approve the zoning exemption. I know you haven't made a motion yet. And then add potentially to your motion that he'd be allowed to take the course if there's room available in the course, either the first or the last period. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, or whenever available, if it's, I don't know.
What he's saying is if broadcasting, if you can't get it the other way, then you might reconsider the exemption request. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly,
So
yes. I'm just looking for an alternative here.
And we will have to look at scheduling. I confess, my daughter just sent me a text. Her understanding of dual enrollment also is that it's 1st and 8th as well. So there will be, again, one mom fighting for her kid. So I would have to really look at both schedules to see what really works out the best for him. So I'll interject that as you're debating.
In the dual enrollment, if it's taught by one of the Laverne High teachers that got a little more flexibility at time, there was a few cases where Motlow, it was U.S. history, I believe, and it was taught only at Motlow. So that one actually started even before school started that day at 7 something. So, but some of the other ones, I think they have a little bit more flexibility in.
May I ask a question?
Please.
He has worked at WFSK, I believe it says here.
He has.
Okay.
He has.
Is he continuing to do any of that?
He is shadowing my husband,
Okay.
who does a little bit of television and radio. We have a nonprofit that helps families with their finances, and the #1 financial challenge at the moment is foreclosure intervention. And so there's a lot of interest around that topic, so he tends to shadow Ron as he works, trying to get the word out about programs that are out there to help
So
families.
there is some broadcasting technology and experience that he observes, and I
There
think
is.
that's a pretty good avenue in and of itself to gain considerable experience.
It is, it is.
Did Reed play basketball this year at Laverne?
He did not.
So he wouldn't have had an eligibility issue or something like that?
No. One of the things I know that we talked about is, you know, if we circle back around to, you know, the faith aspect of all of this, you know, one family looking to a God that sits above all of us and listening and seeking his guidance. And we talked about, you know, the fact that if that means you have to sacrifice basketball, that was his decision to do the very best that he could do to follow his understanding of what the Lord wanted from him. And so I honor him for that. I know that God does. But that is, he did sit out this past year.
Maybe the motion should be to deny, but to have the central office endeavor to make that course available.
I'll contact
If
him
room.
tomorrow.
So would that be an appropriate motion?
If it is, I'll second it.
Repeat it again.
That we'll deny the exemption, but ask the central office to endeavor to make that course available to him at Stewart's Creek.
I know there was some question about if the course for some reason is not available, what would that mean in that situation? I just want to make sure.
Well, I mean, if it's full, it becomes a non-issue anyway. So,
But availability, you talking first and fifth?
if, I would ask that the administration do everything they could to, you know, without upheaval of the entire school system, to schedule that course where it would be available for students from other campuses to attend that did not have access to that program.
Anybody other comments?
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Motion to deny, correct?
To deny, but with that stipulation.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any further discussion? Mr. Nipper, do you have something?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Jernigan?
We're denying the full-time exemption, but we're allowing an exemption for one class if it is available in enrollment numbers would allow. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what you understand, Mr. Evans?
Yes, sir. I don't know if I would call it an exemption, but allowing the student to travel to the other school for that one course, however you want to label that.
Which is a policy that's been adhered to previously.
We've done that in the past.
But we're putting the board stamp of approval that we're motivated for that to happen also.
Appreciate that.
Anybody else? All right, call roll, Mr. Michaels.
Mr. Young?
Denied.
Mr. Nipper?
Deny.
Mr. Jernigan? Mr. Blair?
Deny.
Mr. Eads?
Deny.
Mr. Holliday?
Approved.
Mr. Hodge?
Deny.
Motion carries.
You're so eloquent.
You're most kind. Can I impose on one more question?
Sure.
Just is it reasonable? Because my thought is that we could have all of this worked out now, rather than toward the end.
I'll call them in the morning.
Okay.
And I think what we need to do is to see, I don't know, they haven't firmed up all the class sizes yet, but see what's maybe first or last period of that sort of thing, because you're also gonna have to work his courses out with Laverne. And
Yes.
He's already said he'd work with you, but you've got two issues, so it's gonna take a little bit of work to try to do that.
And as you might suspect, we are on, speed dial with the guidance counselor. They're fabulous at getting, because I have lots of preferences. So I feel like if we move quickly while they're still there, we can get the guidance counselors and everyone involved.
Most of the high schools maintain summer hours too, throughout the summer, so.
As far as your specific contact number, the two cell numbers, is yours the second one?
293-7552.
And you're the first one.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Evans, last appeal, Funderburk.
Yes, sir. Parent Steve and Christina Thunderberg request a zoning exemption for their child to attend Stewart Street High School instead of Smyrna High School.
Hi, thanks for your time tonight. I'm Christina, there was my husband Steve and my son Trey. Trey's been a part of Stewart's Creek family since he was in second grade. Has continued on with the middle school and been very successful in elementary and the middle school. And he, about a year ago, he started expressing an interest in dental health. And a little over a year ago, I guess it was. And when we went to the open house at Smyrna High School, I found out about the pathways. And not being a mom of having older children, I didn't know how the high schools worked these days, and was unaware of how the pathways worked, and found out that they had some really cool pathways at Stewart's Creek. We just kind of pursued on through the year, and he continued to he has braces, obviously, and just kind of expressed an interest in that, hopefully coming off soon. And when I started looking into Smyrna, I found out that they did not have as detailed of a curriculum in dental health as what I was told that Stewart's Creek had. So that led to the zoning exemption request. When it was denied, I just thought, as a mom, I'm going to do everything I can to pursue this, and that's what brings me here tonight. We did go to the freshman orientation at Smyrna High School, thinking, if this is where we land, we need to go find out about it. And I spoke with one of the health and science teachers there, and she expressed to me that the curriculum was a little more in-depth at Stewart's Creek than it was at Smyrna High. That at Smyrna High, they touched on it for a day or two at the dental health part of it. But with Stewart's Creek, that it was a little more in-depth. So that's why I just felt like I needed to keep pursuing this pathway for him. Will he grow up and be a dentist? I have no idea. Only God knows what he's going to do, and he's going to do great wherever he lands. I do know that. But I just feel like, as a mom and dad, we need to fight for him to be at the best place with the best curriculum and the best environment to pursue those, the knowledge and all of that in high school, instead of when he's in college spending the money and then deciding he doesn't want to do that. So that's what brings me here tonight.
The pathways should be the same as far as the curriculum.
It's a health science, and the dental is a health science, rehab, nursing. There's another health science. There's only one course that's dental. It's a senior course that the state has it listed in their cluster. I looked at his schedule and request for next year, and right now, I even asked him today over the phone, I'm seeing 0 students. Of course, we didn't have enough this year to do it for that 5th year. The lady that's there has experience as a dental hygienist, and she can teach it. She's qualified to teach them dentally. But right now, it's still iffy for us. I mean, it's just still really iffy that enough kids are going to want to go the dental route. But I mean, the health science, but your freshmen, your sophomore, your junior year, Smyrna High or any of the others would, health science is pretty much, if you want to look at it, is pretty well straight across. Therapeutic clinical services is what it is. It's in our 7 of our 10 high school areas. So the dental, which I kind of put on there for you to see, since that was one we was thinking about, but it's just a subset of the therapeutic clinical services. That's what it is. So the courses leading up to the dental or the rehab or whatever it is are the same in any high school. It's a health science. Health science is popular, now, just like culinary arts and criminal justice. That's some of the biggest requests we have.
Have we invested in curriculum or in materials for the dental science program?
Some we got, of course, it's one chair, basically, to do that, and some of the materials and things that go with it. It's not a huge investment in anything like a culinary arts or many of the other things. More of it is, like I say, the one chair and some instruments and things like that, but not a huge amount. And it may still make, I don't know whether it's gonna take a little while to build or what. But it's not, I don't know if the kids don't want to look at each other's mouth or what, I don't know what it is, but it's not attracting a lot of people right now. For whatever reason, they aren't choosing it.
But at
Doesn't
this
seem to.
moment, there is no one signed up for that class.
Unless he gets some of the others in health science, and that's where counselors work during the summertime, and also too, as they look and say, are you really, make another contact with them, would you be interested in the dental? If we can have enough kids to do that, it concerns me that if we're not showing many now, how many we're gonna have even after you do offer it. The state allows 1 credit or 2 credits. In other words, you could either do a double block or a single block. The double block is more clinical time, obviously what it is, and the single block is more of course study, just like a nursing or something like that. We're having trouble placing our nurses in hospitals and stuff. They just don't have enough slots for them. We're having trouble with the clinicals everywhere we go in that, because it's just so many kids and so few slots to put people. But you know, I kind of hate to say it, but I think dental is still a little iffy for us at this stage with the number of students.
I remember
I
last
hope it
year-
makes. I truly hope it makes.
I remember last year, we denied a zone exemption that was asking for access to the dental program.
There was no
And-
clinical at all, you know, this year.
I understand. Just the same, if the board continues to deny access to the dental program, then I don't know if that class will ever make it.
But I don't think we're denied it. We're just, if you want to have access and you're not zoned for Stewart's Creek, then you'll have to come from another campus to do that senior year. Because of all the other health science courses, if the curriculum, if they're the same at all of our high schools, then the only difference would be that one course their senior year.
That's what I was having trouble with. I was trying to figure out what is different about Stewart's Creek and the other high schools that are offering this program. So we're saying it's the same.
There's no dental anywhere else that we have as a senior course. That piece is unique. But the health science, the therapeutic health science there, the therapeutic, I'm gonna see again what it is. Therapeutic clinical services is what the state calls it. Is offered in like 7 different schools. I mean, it's one of those that's pretty much everywhere. And the courses wherever you are up until that senior year could be pretty much the same.
Is the dental course designed to be a full year of exposure to dental?
Well, it would be either 1 class period or 2 class periods.
But for the full year, for
the
both
full-
semesters?
Yes, it's not a half credit.
Okay.
It would either be 1 full credit,
Okay.
or the state will permit up to 2 full credits if you do.
And
Again,
the emphasis is dental, it's not a,
yeah, it's
there's no other.
the others, anatomy and physiology, you know, coming up to that in the health services. Again, that's if you do a crew credit, and if we don't get our 20 kids there, it's a really expensive offering and employee time.
Sometimes if you have, a really passionate individual, they find friends and others take interest as well. Just a thought.
And I think they may be able to build it, because I think she's fairly popular. She's been teaching the other health sciences there, and she comes from this field. If there's any desire at all, there's excitement there. It just hasn't built among the student body.
Well, and the same opportunity would be afforded to have access to that course as a senior too.
True. And if it's a freshman, we're talking a freshman basically. So you're 3 years down the road, and by then it may be strong. I don't know.
Well, and Trey's a pretty outgoing kid, so he could help grow that
Drum up
program.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request and then review this in 3 years and see what that class makes, and then that would allow the student to go with one class if they choose to do that.
And if we open up next year, it would actually, you could then if you wanted to.
You want that as part of your motion, Mr. Young? That it be reviewed again in the year?
Yes.
Got a motion by Mr. Young, a second by Mr. Jernigan. Any further discussion on this?
You know,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I think I'd like to know that we granted zone exemptions for the 2nd through 5th grade to go to elementary school. We granted zone exemptions for him to go to middle school. And, you know, we believe in this concept of 3 schools in an area now where the kids can go from elementary to middle to high school together. I just kind of feel that, and he has a sister that goes to elementary school.
Correct.
So I'm wondering why we're not just allow him to go on to the high school as we as a board have stated and believe in that tri-school area.
And I did put in my initial letter, I believe, that, you know, he has just that. He has developed those relationships and those friendships. He's a great kid. He's going to make friends wherever he goes. However, he has those really good core relationships. He goes to church with them on Wednesday nights, on Sundays. You know, he has that. He has those relationships already built, and it is going to be hard to start over, and that's what we would be faced with to start over at Smyrna.
But the difference is Sturge Creek Middle at one time not only fed Blackman, but fed Smyrna and fed Vernon. So it was feeding like many of our middle schools. It doesn't feed just one campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it would be great, but it takes 2 middle schools normally to fill up a high school. So, you know, you would love for them to stay together, but realistically, that it just can't work that way. And as far as the zone exempt, in those cases, as far as the elementary school, it is normally, you know, we would allow them to go to a school that was not at capacity if they were at a school that was at capacity. So, you know, it's just trying to spread the children out and not have them in portables wherever we could.
You would probably zone for either Smyrna Middle School or Rock Springs.
Rock Springs Middle.
It is an overcrowded school, so that helps relieve some overcrowding. That's all we let some of those go through. But there are approximately 63.
That's the number I remember. It was 63 that were in that area that.
They're actually, but you're not even actually zoned for Stewart's Creek Middle School. The 63 we're talking about were zoned for Stewart's Creek Middle.
Stewart's Creek Middle, but
not
had
high
to go
school.
to Smyrna simply because.
Just information for you.
Anyone else? All right, once again, before Mr. Michaels calls roll, we got the motion by Mr. Young, seconded by Mr. Jernigan. Call roll, Ms. Michaels.
Mr. Jernigan? Mr. Eads?
Denied.
Mr. Nipper?
Approved.
Mr. Holliday?
Approved.
Mr. Blair?
Deny.
Mr. Young?
Denied.
Mr. Hodge?
Deny.
Motion is denied.
Can I ask one question about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
coursework that you had mentioned? As he grows in the high school, to be able to take that coursework as a junior or senior, do we go through this process again? Or do I just contact the school at that time? Or do we go, as this family over here did, do we go through this process
I mean,
again?
if the school is open by then, if Stewart's Creek doesn't just, like I said, go out the top, if it's an
Right.
open enrollment, I mean, you just need the signature of the principals, and we.
Okay.
Do a zoning
They just
process.
do a zoning.
For
wouldn't
the
require-
course?
Yeah, but we do
Needed,
that.
okay.
Do we do exemption for the course?
No, not typically.
Not for the course, no.
Yeah,
If
that's
wanna-
what you were talking about was the course,
No.
The
correct?
course,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, she's just talking about, yeah, the central office would help you with that.
Yes,
Okay.
if you just want to take the course, you can contact one of us up here and we can help you see if
Okay.
that's a possibility or not.
Okay.
But if you want to request a full exemption, you would need to reapply.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anything else come before the board? Mr. Jernigan?
I don't know about full agreement, but I kind of like what Mr. Grant said. That program allows other schools, and I was wondering if that would be available to them if they thought about it and said, hey.
We're interested in dental.
Yeah.
That's something we could talk about with NC. If they need that, what I need to do is talk with Dr. Harrell and then a little closer again to see how many kids they might be interested, at least if not this year, the year after, to get this program going one way or the other.
Yeah, my concern
Yeah.
is with our budget and all the way it is, if we don't get this thing going, maybe we could eliminate what we have. Another constraint of our budget.
She's doing full-time teaching in the other health science. I mean, it's not that issue now, but, to make sure that one makes. We are constantly revisiting CTE courses. I don't know whether you've noticed that or not, but over, I guess in recent years, used to be, business was really, really popular. And now its business is shrinking. We actually are having to look at that. In many cases where somebody retires or leaves, there's sufficient people to handle it. Mr. Zago's been looking at that because people are going to more specialty courses like, either specifically in a criminal justice or in some area like that, or finance. If you'll notice in here, business and finance are actually, the state has them separated. So business management administration, but the finance is the old accounting and banking finance. So when you consider the pathways that go with the clusters, the state looks to me like needs to revisit that and kind of put two of those together. Of course, what kids are looking at is getting their elective focus, 3 courses in one area to get an elective focus. But you could still take CTE and have an elective focus in an academic area, maybe in the arts, or in other areas. But every student graduate has to have some elective focus, which is 3 courses in one area beyond the state required courses for graduation. So there's a number of kids that, one of the ones, as one of you mentioned earlier, we have quite a few kids at Central Magnet. They're going to summer school or online. They're trying to get a personal finance or something done because they want to take another course in the school year for the scheduling also. It's amazing how many kids now are either graduating earlier or taking additional courses in their first 3 years of school to be able to do something else the senior year or something like that, because they tend to be, a lot of these very good students, which I think is what we got here tonight, tend to be involved in everything you can be involved in, course and music and anything else. That's them, that's their makeup, and so they struggle to be able to do that and still work all of these other things into their schedule.
Anybody else?
I know our parents and students are leaving here tonight disappointed, but I'm proud that we have such parents that are engaged and that they hold their children accountable and they're accountable to their children. And because of that, these students will continue to do very, very well, whatever endeavor they attempt. So pleased to have parents so engaged.
What else? All right, our next, we've got a meeting Thursday night, 5:30. Special call budget meeting. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.